I want to talk about when self-care backlashes, when you don't get the result you want and it turns into an anxiety spiral. It is a little before 7 a.m. and I am not happy to be up, but look at this beautiful sunrise. Look at this beautiful sunrise. I'll tell you the story in a minute. Anyway, there's a point to this. But first, I need to go find somewhere else to park. Talk to you in a few minutes. Okay, I think I found a place where I can park for a couple of hours before the place I want to get into opens at 9. So I've already been up for close to an hour now, driving around slash sitting on the side of the road looking at the map for a place to park. Because yesterday I looked up where I could park for last night so I'm headed back through Nebraska on the way home, and I didn't want to do the entire 8-hour drive in one go for once. I usually do, but I wanted to break it up and give myself a little bit of grace and not push so hard. So I found a place midway to park for the night and had several good reviews about no amenities. I don't care. I don't need them anyway, but it's clean, safe, good enough for me. And I get there last night and there are signs all around saying 8-hour parking, no overnight parking, no camping. That's new. So it was already very late. There were several other people there, clearly parking overnight, several big rigs and a couple of RVs, a travel trailer. So I decided I'm going to chance it. If they wake me up in the middle of the night and tell me to move on, I'll move on. But at least I'll have gotten a few hours of sleep before then, because I was pretty tired. But I didn't sleep very well because I kept anticipating that I might get a knock on the van and have to get up and go driving in the middle of the night. So I didn't sleep very well. Woke up pretty early, I'm guessing around 5:30, 6-ish. Lay there for a little while, just trying to get myself out of bed so that I could get up and move before anyone who actually cares gets there in the morning and decides to, I don't know, either best case scenario, they knock on the van door and tell me to move along with everyone else there. Worst case scenario, they leave a parking ticket and I have to pay a fine, and that's probably going to be more than whatever camping fee I would have paid if I had gone to a campground. So that would suck. So anyway, I get up about 6:30, start driving around looking for just somewhere in the area that looks decent to park. It's pretty much all private roads, private driveways. And then I found this place. It's a little wildlife management area, basically public lands. It also says no overnight parking, but it's 7:15 in the morning now, so it's not overnight parking anymore. So I think I'm good. I'm going to go back to bed in a few minutes. The point of all this is I wanted to tell you a story about another time that something similar happened, and it sent me into an anxiety spiral, and it could have very nearly derailed a lot of the personal progress that I was making. So when I was living in the van, I was using the same app to find some parking, and the app is pretty good. It's pretty accurate for the most part, but it's not 100%, and I just accept that as a fact of life. And there weren't a lot of options in this remote area of Arkansas, and I get to a place that I thought was going to be a state or federally managed small tiny campground that had basically no services, and it turned out to be a small private campground, which meant paying for the overnight. And like I said before, I was on an extremely tiny budget, and I didn't have money to pay for it. But more than that, I was just kind of surprised. So I pulled into this campground, and the campground manager came over to me, and I was just looking through my app because I was like, this is not what I was expecting. So I was just sitting there looking through my phone. He came up to me and wanted to collect the fee, and I was just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Like, look at the information that I had, look at the app. I was expecting this to be a state free campground. And he was also surprised. And anyway, we both sort of muddled our way through an awkward conversation, and he offered, well, I guess you could stay here one night for free. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And he directed me over to a spot where I could stay, and I promised I wasn't going to use their services. I was just needed a spot to park for the night. And I did. I didn't even step out of the van. Didn't use anything that they had to offer, just a place to stay. Anyway, so in the morning, this was at a period in my personal growth where I was trying to let myself relax, to let myself do a little self-care, to not be on edge so much. And I was frequently reminding myself every morning that it was okay for me to sleep in a little bit. It's okay for me to, like, I didn't have to get up and immediately get on the road to avoid the kind of situation I'm in this morning. Like, I didn't have to avoid being seen. I didn't have to avoid anyone knowing that I had been there overnight. Even when it was legal, I was still feeling very anxious about the van life, it had been a couple of years at this point, but still, that was a long thing for me it took a long time for me to break out of that anxiety. Anyway, so this morning, again, I was reminding myself it's okay. I don't have to rush. I can just take my time getting ready. I slept in a little, or I let myself stay in bed a little bit longer than I was entirely comfortable with, and in order to try and get myself comfortable with doing that, I got up slowly, brushed my hair slowly, got some breakfast slowly, and that campground manager came back around the van, didn't say anything to me, just sort of walked around the van and then walked away. And I noticed it, and I was trying to remind myself, it's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean anything weird is happening. It's not a bad thing. He's just taking a look. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. And I just let myself get ready slowly, and I was just about the point where I was ready to head out, and the campground manager comes back again, and this time he does come up to me, and he knocks on my door, wants to talk, and he is in a real state. He has definitely worked himself up, and he starts not actually yelling at me, but speaking very forcefully and kind of berating me and saying things like I had taken advantage of him, like I had tricked him into letting me stay overnight, and that I was like doing this regularly to campgrounds across the country, and I was scamming the system, and I was this no good loser manipulative woman who was, I don't know, like he was just going on and on, all of it completely untrue, but he had clearly worked himself up overnight. And thinking back later, I imagined that he went back to his place overnight, and I'm waking up very slowly, even though it's been a while. I am not a morning person. So anyway, I imagine that he tossed and turned all night about this, and he's invented this story about how I'm, I don't know, scamming campgrounds to get free parking or something. I don't know. So after a few minutes of his tirade, and I'm not answering him, I'm honestly just too stunned to talk. I'm like, I don't even know really what's going on at this point. He tells me that he's called the local sheriff's department, and he's given them my license plate. apparently he got that when he came around and looked at the van a little while ago, and he's told them to keep an eye out for me and that I need to get out of there now, and I need to leave his property and get the hell out of there. And so I'm still kind of stunned. I don't remember really what I said, probably some sort of muttered apology and not much, but I just leave. I was about to leave anyway, so I was all packed up and ready to go. So anyway, I head out, drive about 20 minutes down the road, found a place to park, and I started bawling. I was just, it suddenly hit me, and I'd held it together up until then, and that's when I lost it. And it wasn't just that one incident. It felt like all of these times when I had been misunderstood in the past, all these times when my intentions had been misinterpreted for the worst, all these times in my life when things had gone wrong in ways that were confusing and that I didn't understand, all these times when I had tried to take care of myself, I had tried to advocate for myself, I had tried to do something nice for myself, and it backfired, and something unfortunate happened. And it was like all of this came down on me, and it took me several hours to work through it. And I had to talk to a couple of trusted people and work through this with my therapist at my next appointment as well. And what could have happened very, very easily would be for me to react to, see, that's proof that I can't do self-care. That's proof that the world doesn't understand me. That's proof that anytime I try and do anything, it's just going to backfire. That, like, it would have sent me farther into the shell, like just back into the mask, even harder. And that could have very, very easily happened, and it almost did. It was just by the grace of having worked through so much up to that point that the crack in the shell was just big enough that between that and having one particular trusted person in my life that I was able to talk to about this later that day, and she reminded me of a couple of important things. I don't remember at the moment what they were, but they hit me at just right at that moment. Between those two things, having had that crack open just enough, and that one trusted person in my life, that was enough that it didn't just send me back into my shell. It didn't shut me down harder. And I'm sharing this because it's so easy for that to happen. It's so easy for, when we try to start unmasking, or when we try to start taking care of ourselves, when we try to start doing these personal growth things, when we try to start setting boundaries, when we try to start sticking up for ourselves, when we try to do less people pleasing, when we try to say what we are really thinking, when we try to ask for something that we need, when we try to advocate, when we try to ask for accommodations, when we try to be a little more ourselves, when we try to do any of these kinds of things that are risky and they're scary, and we've had bad experiences with them in the past, which is why we got into the situation we are, with the mask, the shell, the feeling closed in, with the anxiety, with the panic, the burnout. Like, of course those have effects, and that's how we got to where we are. And that doesn't have to be the only response. There's this thing in psychology, there's a whole subset of psychology about decision making and results. The method of making the decision is not necessarily related to the outcome of that decision. We can make the absolute best decision that we can at the time with the information that we have, with the available data that we have. And simply because we cannot have all of the information that would be needed to make a perfect decision, we are not omniscient. We don't we can't know all of the factors that are involved in every aspect of it, that we are necessarily limited by our limited human ability to know only parts of the situation. Like, we can only see with our own perspective, we can only have access to some of the data. We can't know what other people are thinking. Like, I couldn't have known what was in that campground manager's head. I couldn't have known how he would have reacted, of how he would have people pleased at the moment when he was talking to me when I first arrived, and be like, oh yeah, it's okay, you stay for free for one night, just don't use our services. And like, he could have that initial reaction because he doesn't know what to say, and it's awkward, and like, he has maybe a history of that would have resulted in that kind of acquiescence in the moment. But then I couldn't have known that he would have gone away and had a very different reaction later. And I'm imagining, again, I don't know for sure, that he tossed and turned all night, that he worked himself up into a state and created this story in his head, this narrative of how I was going around from campground to campground scamming them, and that he would have had that reaction of, oh, I must call the sheriff's department and rat out this woman who's doing this evil thing. And like, I could not have known any of that. I could not, like, it was just not in the realm of what I could have known. So I made the decision based upon what he told me at the time, that it was okay for me to stay for the night, that it would be fine. I mean, clearly he didn't love the situation, but he seemed to be okay with it. To what I could see at the time, he seemed to be genuinely okay with it. And that was the best decision that I could have made at that time. And I could not have seen what was going on with him when he was well out of my reach. And the decision in the morning to get ready slowly, to pack up slowly, to take care of myself, to try and lean into this, I don't have to rush, that was based upon my personal growth journey at that point, and all the decisions that I knew were best for me. And I had no other access to information that would have contradicted that, to say that this particular situation was a little bit different, and that this was going to be one of those mornings where I should just not be in someone's hair this morning. I should let them do their thing, and that this morning I should get out sooner. But that doesn't invalidate the whole principle of I am able to take care of myself, and that some mornings I can get ready slowly. I couldn't have seen that. So I made the best decision that I could at the time, and the result of it was unfortunate. The result of it didn't work out the way I had planned or wanted, but that doesn't invalidate the fact that it was a reasonable decision based upon all the information that I had access to. And I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is that sometimes we genuinely do make what is actually a good decision, and the result of it is unfortunate. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't a good decision. The decision was good insofar as all of the lead up to the decision was appropriate, given the information that I had, given all of the facts at hand, given the situation as I knew it. It was a good decision, and it turned out badly. So that's one of the things that I want to say. The other thing is that that unfortunate situation could have sent me back into my shell. It could have made me mask harder. It could have made me more anxious and sent me back into a big spiral and further into burnout, where I was getting out of it really well at that point, but it could have sent me in the wrong direction. Because if I had taken it as, oh, look, this is proof that I can't take care of myself, I can't do these good things for myself, it would have felt like it invalidated all of the personal growth that I had done for a couple of years at that point. But I didn't let it do that. I had developed just enough, just barely enough trust in myself at that point, just barely enough insight into there are situations that go badly, but it doesn't mean that the principle is wrong. To be able to live into that, to be able to say, yes, this sucked. And it brought up a lot of old feelings around this kind of a situation. And it triggered a grieving. And I think that that's what was going on when I started bawling, is I think that years of these feelings of pain, of suffering, all came up, and that I needed to grieve them, and that I cried for several hours. It was a very uncomfortable experience for me. I don't cry, or I at that point in my life I didn't cry very much, but I was getting to a place where I started crying more, which was shocking and weird to me. And this one time, it was like the biggest experience I'd had, and I could not get myself to stop for hours. I was just bawling like a toddler for hours. And at the time, I did not understand what was going on. Even working through it with my therapist later on, I don't think, I mean, she helped me work through a lot of it, but I don't think that I understood at the time, like I understand now, that what I was doing was grieving. I was grieving years of those kinds of being misinterpreted, of my intentions being badly misinterpreted, of being misunderstood, and of being accused of things that were entirely inaccurate, and the pain of all of that. I and I needed to grieve that. I needed to let myself, and I did let myself. It was hard, but it was just one of those times where I couldn't stop. Like, it was just happening to me. This was not something I was doing. And there was a little part somewhere in the back of my head that was kind of observing this and watching it and kind of taking note of it without judgment, just observing as a witness to this, and being like, oh, that's interesting. This is what you need to do right now. It's okay for you to do that. Go ahead. It's okay. And as I'm thinking about that, I'm feeling a bunch of emotions welling up right now. And I'm going to let that happen. It's not it's not like what happened before, but I'm noticing the emotions. And I'm just letting them happen. Yeah, that was a hard thing. And I'm very grateful now that I let myself go through that. And afterwards, it took a few days before I started feeling better. And I don't mean better as in feeling good, but feeling, I don't know, less burdened by all of those years of being misinterpreted. Something like that. I'm not sure if I'm capturing it exactly right, but That's close. But yeah, I felt less burdened by it all. It didn't make it happy. I don't think it's ever going to be, I don't think I'm ever going to look back on it and think it was happy. Um, that's not the point. It doesn't need to. Of course, those were bad experiences, and no revisionist history is going to make that different. And I'm not trying to. I don't want it to. That's not the point. The point is to recognize, yeah, that stuff sucked. Yeah, that really was painful. And it doesn't have to be my whole story. It informs who I have become. It is a part of me, but now it's more of an integrated part of me. Like it's a part of my past. And I have learned from it. But what I used to learn from it was that it's not okay to be me. What I'm learning from it now is that I was in very unhealthy relationship dynamics, and I was dealing with people who had a lot of pain and trauma themselves, and that they did not know how to deal appropriately with differences. But that does not mean that I am bad for being different. It doesn't mean that there aren't people who can deal with that well, and there are, and I've met many of them. And some of those people from my past who I had difficult relationships with before have in fact stayed in my life and become people who I have very good relationships with now. Only a few of them, but enough, because they weren't doing it out of meanness. They were doing it because they just didn't have any other models in their lives. And they wanted to be better. Not everyone wanted to be better, but a few people did. And I didn't try to change them. I did my own changing, and they came along for the ride. They, for their own reasons, as part of their own journey, they made the trip with me because they wanted to. I did not try to make that happen. That was their choice, and I am very glad that that was their choice, because these are people that I'm very grateful to still have in my life. And not everyone was able to make that journey. There are some people that didn't, and that's okay too. That was their choice. That was their journey. It was not on a parallel track with mine, and that's okay. And it was hard to recognize that. For some of them, it was hard to leave them behind. And it's okay. And I've also found new people who have been wonderfully accepting, because in their own way, they've made their own journeys to accepting people who are different. And it usually started with them accepting themselves, and then their little communities, and then finding other people and making their wider community. And each of us on our own tracks have met, and it's been really good. And I couldn't have imagined, literally could not have imagined, how well things would have worked out at that time when I was crying 20 minutes outside of a campground in Arkansas. At that moment, all I could see was the pain, and that was very much a part of my experience. And that was not all of my experience. That wasn't the whole story. That was only the story that I could see up to that point. And staying on that personal growth journey, letting myself grieve all of those times when I had been misinterpreted, and processing that, and leaning into, like, very intentionally hardcore leaning into the idea that that doesn't mean that it's not okay. Like, I can still do this self-care thing. I can do this personal growth thing. Like, just because some people will react badly to it doesn't mean that the whole principle is invalid. It doesn't invalidate what I'm doing. And yes, some people will react badly. Some people won't be able to handle it. And that's okay. I don't have to spend any more time with them than I absolutely have to. And sometimes I will come in contact with them. Sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes it will blindside me. Sometimes I won't expect it, and that will hurt. And it doesn't invalidate the principle. And I can continue on this journey. And that's what I mean by hope is a verb. Like it is actively choosing to believe that it is okay for me to become more myself. Not because I have any really great evidence at this point. In fact, the evidence that I have is that it did not work out well last night. But I choose to believe that it still matters. I choose to believe that this is still okay. And I chose to believe that on a daily basis, sometimes a minute by minute basis, choosing to believe that what I was doing was the right thing for me and that it would eventually turn out well. Even if in individual circumstances it went badly, that the overarching journey was a good one, was an appropriate one, was the right thing for me to do. And I very actively had to remind myself of that because there were so many doubts, and I chose to believe that what I was doing was the right thing and that it would eventually bear fruit, that it would turn out well. And it did. It very much did. It's exactly what it took to build the life that I have now, and I love the life that I have now. And I know that even this is still just a chapter in my story, and that I'm looking forward to what the next chapter will be. And I have no idea when or how that will happen or what it will look like. But I just know that this isn't the end of it. This is the next phase, and I love the phase that I'm in now. And I'm just choosing to enjoy this phase, and we'll see where it leads. But that's what it took to get here, is choosing actively to believe that I was doing the right thing by being on this journey. So I'll leave you with that. And I'm going to go back to bed because I'm still tired. But I've woken up enough that I don't think I'm going to sleep. I'm just going to rest for a little while and then figure out what I want to do next with the morning. I wish you a near wonderful day.